conversation around Manchester United is once again dominated by the idea of a squad overhaul, a phrase that has become so common at Old Trafford it has almost lost all meaning. We hear it with every new manager, with every transfer window that promises a fresh start, and yet the cycle of disappointment continues. But this time, there is a fundamental shift that is not being discussed enough. This is not about simply backing Ruben Amorim with a list of his preferred players. That is the old, failed model. This is about the club finally, for the first time in over a decade, implementing a top-down vision that exists independently of the man in the dugout. The overhaul we are now witnessing is not for Amorim. It is for the very soul and future of Manchester United itself. To understand why this distinction is so critical, we must glance back at the chaotic years following Sir Alex Ferguson's departure. The club has been a reactive entity, lurching from one philosophical extreme to another with each new managerial appointment. Under Jose Mourinho, the club engaged in a form of squad building, but it was entirely manager-centric. The players brought in were Mourinho's players, tailored for his specific, often short-term, tactical demands. When his tenure unravelled, the club was left with a squad assembled for a style of football they were no longer going to play. The subsequent appointment of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was a complete and utter U-turn in footballing ideology. Suddenly, the club was trying to pivot to a different type of player, a different mentality. We saw glimpses of a potential new direction, but without a sporting structure above the manager to enforce a long-term plan, it remained a vision tied to one man. The failure to secure a target like Declan Rice during that era stands as a testament to the lack of a coherent, overriding strategy. Then came the Erik ten Hag era, which in many ways represented the absolute peak of this flawed model. The club's approach was disarmingly simple. The manager identified the players he wanted, and the board went out and attempted to sign them, regardless of fit, age, or long-term resale value. There was no filtering process through a defined COB philosophy. No consideration for how these pieces would fit into a puzzle that would outlast the current manager. This manager knows best strategy has left the club with a bloated, imbalanced, and incredibly expensive squad that lacks a clear identity. The current situation, therefore, is not just about clearing out deadwood, it is about surgically removing the legacy of a decade of strategic failure. The departures, whether permanent sales or loans for players like Sancho, Rashford or Casemiro, are not merely about generating funds or appeasing Amorim. They are about erasing the mistakes of the past and creating a clean slate for a new unified footballing project. This brings us to the core of the new approach under the Ineos-led structure. The signings we are now seeing, and will continue to see, are not just Ruben Amorim players, they are Manchester United players in the context of a modern, data-driven system. A perfect case study is the signing of a player like Dorgu. He was not necessarily a global superstar demanded by the manager, but a strategic acquisition identified by the recruitment team to fit a specific profile and role within a broader system. The investment is calculated. It is not a desperate, massive fee for a ready-made superstar. The logic is sound. If he succeeds, he becomes a valuable asset for the team. If he does not, his age, profile, and the structure of the deal mean the club has a high probability of recouping its investment. This is a world away from the previous strategy of signing aging stars on colossal wages with virtually no resale value. This philosophy extends to the types of players the club should be investing in heavily. When we hear reports of United pursuing a premium central midfielder or a modern ball-playing centre-back, it makes complete strategic sense. These are foundational pieces. A world-class midfielder, an Anderson, or a player of that ilk, is system-proof. They are the engine of any successful team, regardless of whether the manager prefers a 4-3-3, a 3-4-3, or any other formation. The same applies to a dominant, athletic centre-back. These positions are the pillars upon which teams are built, and investing heavily in them is an investment in the club's long-term health, not just a short-term fix for the current coach. This is where the concept of backing the manager evolves. It is not about giving him a blank check for his personal wish list. It is about empowering a sporting structure that works with the manager to identify and acquire players who fit the club's permanent philosophy. a philosophy that the manager is hired to execute and enhance. The danger, of course, is falling back into old habits. The instinct to simply get the manager what he wants is a seductive one, especially when a new coach arrives with fresh ideas. There will be pressure to sign a specific expensive wingback simply because he fits Amorim's system perfectly, even if he lacks the versatility or resale value to be a prudent long-term asset. This is the crossroads United now face. The club must resist the temptation of the quick fix. The overhaul is necessary not because Ruben Amorim demands it, but because the squad, as it stands, is not fit for purpose for any elite-level manager. It is a collection of parts from different puzzles, assembled with no coherent picture in mind. The process of moving on from high-wage, underperforming stars is a painful but essential surgery that the club has avoided for years. The potential sales of players like Casemiro, Sancho, and Rashford are not just about balancing the books. They are symbolic acts, signalling the end of an era of impunity and a move towards a culture of accountability and performance. In conclusion, the narrative surrounding Manchester United's transfer activity needs a fundamental reframing. We must stop asking, is this a good signing for Ruben Amorim? And start asking, is this a good signing for Manchester United? The club is finally, and correctly, separating the concept of a squad overhaul from the act of backing a manager. The overhaul is a multi-year project to cleanse the club of the rot that has set in from a decade of negligent leadership and reactive planning. It is about building a squad with a clear identity, filled with players who have the technical, physical, and mental attributes to succeed at the highest level, regardless of who the manager is in 2 or 3 years' time. Backing Ruben Amorim means providing him with a squad built on these intelligent, sustainable principles, not a collection of personalised tools that become obsolete when he eventually moves on. This is the only way to break the cycle. This is not an overhaul for a manager, it is an overhaul for the future.